Let's see what's in store with the dating doctor. Welcome to the Open to Love show. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Horsley, with my partner,
Dr. Frank Powers.
Well, as a lot of you may know, if you followed us, we kind of call ourselves the Open to Love Golden Dating Doctors, and that's our site. And we wrote a book together. I met Frank online, and we wrote a book together, Open to Love: The Secrets of Senior Dating. So that's how we kind of got into this gig together. I was going to write a widow's book, and I met Frank online.
Yeah.
So
The luckiest
anyway,
day of my life.
so now we're talking to you all about Open to Love and how you can bring love back in your life again.
Because we certainly have done that.
And we certainly have. We have a
We have
wonderful time.
experience.
Yep. And we feel like there's somebody out there for everybody, don't we?
I think so. There's so many people on this planet that there is someone out there for you. It's just how do you find them?
Yep. And we tell you in the book, and we got
And are you ready to find
and
them?
you're ready. And we've got a special treat for you because we got an expert
We
coming
have a
on.
man who knows a lot about being ready.
Absolutely. But before we get started with our guest, Abel Keogh, we want to answer a couple of the emails. Well, Margot wants to know how I avoid scammers. I'll let you take that.
Well, okay. I think the biggest thing is under no circumstances, no circumstances, when you meet a person online, do you ever give money.
Ever.
That will save the scamming because that's all they're in there for is
Really?
for the money. So the real thing is if you tell yourself under no circumstances do I give money, then you're safe.
Yeah.
Basically safe. You also want to meet the person as soon as possible.
Really
You want to
important.
make sure that it's not someone who's scamming from a foreign country somewhere.
Mm-hmm. And no matter where you meet people, you got to have that spark. There's got to be some
And
energy.
it's really hard to tell online if that spark is there. You really have to meet the person in person.
And you may meet them at class reunions.
Oh, you can meet them anywhere
yeah.
in the grocery line.
But you got to get out there and be proactive.
Exactly.
So I want to take this from Ron. Guys are saying, I'm a high school teacher, or do I have enough money, or
Yeah, well,
expertise to
guys think that their value is basically in how much money and security they can provide for the woman in their life. And really, in a sense, I think it's a misnomer because at this point, we want someone that we can have fun with, that's a playmate and someone that we can really enjoy.
Yeah, we're talking about a little more middle-aged dating.
Yeah,
Maybe in the
I would
50s
be,
or whatever.
as a man, more worried that I was not fun enough and I wasn't the kind of person that someone could have a lot of fun with. Now, that might be more of a problem than how much money you make.
Well, the other issue is women want you not talk about yourself the whole time. And
You mean I couldn't talk about? You mean you're telling me now when we met I was talking about myself too much?
I
Oh
wanted
my
you to
God.
talk about me.
Oh, I had no idea. I had no idea.
Anyway, well, let's get to our guest
Okay.
because he's going to have some important.
Oh, he has much more information than we do. I heard he has 200 videos on him.
He has got.
I'm impressed.
He's got so much great stuff. He's got so much great stuff. He's written 5 dating guides,
my
a
God.
memoir, a co-author book, and he has.
Let's get him on. We need an expert.
Okay, so Abel Keogh is our man. Hey, Abel.
Hey, Gloria. Hey, Frank. Thanks for having me on.
So much fun to have you on. Abel's wife was pregnant and she shot herself as you came home, right?
Ooh.
That's correct.
Shocking story. I mean, that's enough to set you off forever. The thing I love about Abel is not only that you found love again, but that you have gone out and helped other people through this whole tragedy. I mean, you have spent.
If Abel can do it, anyone can do it after what he's experienced.
So tell us what's the difference between dating a widow or a widower?
I think the biggest difference is that widowers tend to date a lot sooner than widows. They tend to have a hole in their life. I call it a wife-shaped hole in their heart. And widows tend to kind of get their act together for the most part better. They tend to, kind of put their life together. They kind of tend to, think through things a bit better before they start dating. And widowers just kind of, for the most part, they go out there and jump into a relationship before they're ready. And so the way, there's always going to be issues whether you're dating a widow or widower, but I think what I see with widowers the most is that they're not ready. They're not mentally and emotionally to a place where they can have a relationship, and they start a relationship for the wrong reasons. That's the biggest difference that I see.
Do you think they even know that they're not ready, or that they even think about, well, am I ready? I'm not sure that most of these men that I've seen even ask the question.
Oh, I agree with that. I don't think most of them have, I don't think they've asked themselves that question. A lot of times when I do coaching, especially if they're recently widowed, one of the first questions I'll ask them is, well, what is it that you're looking for in this next chapter of your life? And usually it's the deer in the headlights look. They can't answer that question. And which I mean, I've been there. I started dating 5 months after my wife died, and I think if someone had asked me that question, why are you doing this? I would not have had an answer at that time either.
Mhm, mhm.
I think that's most of the men that I've met, that's exactly where they're at.
Okay, now this poses a problem for women, and that is that these guys or somebody like you are taken up before I even feel like they're ready to date me.
You think the women have to be a little patient with these men and try to help them understand that they have to do some work before they're ready?
I don't think it's being patient. I think it's being discerning, I guess is what it would be, is being able to maybe ask the right questions to kind of see if they're ready. Because a lot of times I'll talk to women who are dating widowers and their guts telling them he's not ready, right? They're saying something doesn't feel right. And maybe that, they can't put a finger on exactly what it is. And so a lot of times I'll coach them through some questions to maybe ask the widower, things to kind of look for so they can get that idea because I don't think it's not good for anybody, but you don't want to be in a relationship if one person is in it for the wrong reasons or doesn't know why it is that they're dating again, because you're just
Yeah.
opening yourself up for heartache.
Frank and I find with a lot of women that they're afraid, about even dating or getting into it. They're embarrassed.
Mhm.
Do you guys have the same feeling about that?
Yes, I think to a lesser extent, but I do think a lot of them do have that. They do have those feelings.
Well, what's your advice to women who have these fears or men about dating?
Um, I I think it's I think if you have a fear about dating again, I think that's normal. But I would also say it's like maybe I would take a step back and just ask yourself why it is that you're dating. It's really understanding why am I looking for a relationship. And I think if someone had asked me that question, years and years ago, if someone had asked why I was dating again, yeah, I think it just would have maybe made me pause. And I think that's what you kind of have to do. If you want to date and you're not looking for something serious, I think that's fine. But I think you need to be open and upfront with the people that you're dating that this is what I want, and be open and upfront with yourself about, yeah, this is why I'm dating. I'm just looking for a connection. I just need somebody to spend some time with. And I think that's fine as long as you're open, whether you're meeting people online or in person. If you just say, look, I'm just looking for something casual just to do some, but, just to hang out with occasionally, that's okay. But I think just, be honest about that. And I think if you can do that, I think a lot of the fear you have about dating can kind of go away, or at least maybe starting a relationship, or maybe taking those first steps. But I don't think a lot of people ask those, they don't really ask that question, at least not in maybe the first year or so. If they're dating within the first year of being widowed, I don't know if they're quite self-aware enough to ask themselves that question.
Yeah, yeah.
I love your advice that for women, if they just say, do you think you're ready for a relationship? I mean, just put it right out there and just ask the guy, where are you? Are you interested in a relationship, or are you still working through your grief?
Hey, I'm liking this. The reason I'm liking it as a woman is you're not cutting off the relationship.
No,
You're with
you're
a
just
guy. I
asking a
mean,
question.
it's like I see women say, "Oh, okay, he's not ready to date, so I'm not going to date." But how about saying, "Do you think you're ready to date? Maybe we should play pickleball together, or
Or
why don't
or
we go for
yeah,
a
or
hike? Or
just get to know one another.
why
Can
don't
we
we?"
be friends
Yeah,
for a while? And that would be nice. I could use a friend.
yeah, and
Loneliness to me is the number one motivator for most people, whether it's male or female. And I'm not sure the guys even realize how lonely they are. They just feel an emptiness and they want to fill it quickly.
Mhm.
Yeah, 100% agree with that.
And you know, it's so interesting talking to families because Frank and I all talk to somebody who's thinking about dating, and then you talk to their family, and they're like, "Oh, my mother's really happy. You know, she's
Yeah, every
great.
time I see her, she's really
She's
happy.
doing
Of
really,
course, when I
really
don't
well."
see her, I don't see her unhappiness, but that's okay.
And I say to people, "Well, what do you think? I'm going to go over at Thanksgiving, or I've been invited on Friday night, and I'm going to."
Me, one day a week, one day a month.
Exactly, and she's so happy.
That's not
So
enough,
I
not
think
enough.
loneliness is a big thing. Well, tell me, what are some date killers if I do get out there and uh, get the courage up, I go out and I go online, or I go to a class reunion, or I go, you know, to church or wherever, and I walk up to people, and maybe I'm a little bit forward and I say, "Hey, Frank, you know, I know you like to go to the movies. Would you like to go see Downton Abbey with me?" You know, and I really step it up. If I get to that place with a,
Wow, that's pretty brazen.
I know, it could be.
I
For
love it.
women,
I love it.
for women that is, but you know, you can step it up and do that. I mean, maybe somebody's wife died 5 months ago, and you know these guys step into relationships really quickly. Maybe you say you want to, you do, you know, do that
Mhm.
gap. But
Don't you bring muffins or something?
yeah, my mother, oh, this is really, my mother used to say, she was a senior and my dad died, and she said, "Gloria, if you want to meet a guy," I mean, she's really older in her late 70s. She says you have to carry soup to the wife who's dying. And she did,
Thinking ahead, right?
and she did meet a guy, and
I know she was pretty successful.
when you're older, you don't have that much time. She's watching the obituaries, and her boyfriend
Your
from
mother was so good.
college, his wife died. He's a dentist. So she calls him up and says, "Will you meet me at this coffee shop?" And she said, "I was sitting there and this old man walked in." And then she said, I realized, I guess I'm an old lady too. But they were together for the next 3 years.
That's wonderful.
So
Yeah.
I don't
So,
know if that's happened. But what are date killers to your mind?
I think the two biggest ones, I think one is it's not listening, it's only talking about yourself. I think, part of the thing of being widowed is that, I mean, a lot of things, everyone's asking how you're doing, how are things going, which, is normal, but I think, I always say that, there's something I call selfish grief that's at some point, you have to be able to look outside yourself. And a lot of the complaints I hear in coaching sessions from women is that, we started talking and all he would do is talk about the past or what he's lost or things like that. There was no effort to get to know me. And so, I think you can mention your loss that, hey, I've been widowed this long. This is how my spouse passed away. Just, on a high level, I think that's fine because that's good for the other person to know and just kind of, check in. But I think, a date is really getting to know the other person. And is there a chemistry there? Is there a spark there? And so I think, so one of the killers is when you just talk about yourself and, maybe things that you've lost. And instead of trying to focus on the other person and make a connection there. And I think, the second one kind of dovetails with that, as I see a lot of people trying to force things, right? You can't force a relationship. You can't force that connection. You can't force that spark. And so, I think if you're there and you're getting to know somebody, just talking with them, doing a low stress date, like you said, going on a hike, doing pickleball, just meeting for coffee. I think you can kind of tell usually within a date or two, is there a spark there? Is there something else worth pursuing at that point? But I think, when you focus on yourself and try to force it, I just think that totally kills dates and, it sets you up to get, if it does progress past that, to maybe being in a relationship that you shouldn't be in.
Mhm. I think you can remind guys too.
Oh yeah,
Sometimes
I
there's
used to talk to them and I said, try not to try to sell yourself. Just let the person see whether you're a person who really is loving and caring and thoughtful. And if you're loving, caring, and thoughtful, you got a real step forward in terms of a relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you've got one great last piece of advice for people who want to date, what would it be, Abel?
I think it would just be yourself. You are who you are, and you can't force or change yourself. And I think just, obviously you want to put your best foot forward, but I think, just, don't be stressed out about it. Just go out there and be yourself and just relax. And, if it's meant to be, if you can have a spark and connection with someone, it'll happen. If not, it doesn't, but there's lots of opportunities out there. Just because it doesn't work out the first couple times doesn't mean it won't work out. And I guess I would finally say that dating is a learning experience. Most widows and widowers, they haven't dated sometimes for decades. And so
You don't realize.
it's okay. It's okay to go out there and make some mistakes. It's okay to fall flat on your face a few times. I know I did. But it just, as you keep learning and figure things out, you'll get your dating legs back, and generally things tend to work out once that happens.
I love it. Now,
Great advice.
Abel's a fabulous human being.
Thank you. I'm really happy to have met you. I think you're doing great work, and keep it up.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Frank and Gloria. Appreciate being on your podcast today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we want to thank everybody for joining us on this Open to Love podcast today. And Frank and I always want to remind you, get out there and try dating, because we
Have
really
some
believe.
fun. If it's not fun, you won't do it.
That's right.
So have some fun. See it as an activity, like walking. It's something healthy for you, because loneliness is a killer. And if you really want to be healthy and live longer, because people who are in relationships, especially men, live about 7 years longer.
Absolutely.
So it's a real health measure.
Absolutely.
So get healthy. Get out there.
Get out there and get healthy.
Yes.
Thanks for watching.